So we start the review with a problem that asks which graph best represents this system of equations and its solution. Now we learned several different methods for solving systems of equations. This one is set up to do elimination, but you would have to multiply, do a double multiplication, multiply the top maybe by -4 and multiply the bottom by 7 in order to get those x's to go away. So here's where we use some test-taking strategy. Now you know that the solution to a system of equations is the point where they intersect. So take a look at these points where they intersect, and there's really only two different points. This one is -3, 0. This one is also -3, 0. This one is 3, 0. And this one is 3, 0. So in other words, finding the solution to the system of equations is only going to eliminate two of the responses. So of course you have a couple of choices here. You can use your Desmos calculator, Desmos graphing calculator, and you can put those two equations in and see which one of those matches. Or you can take a look at the x and y intercepts of both of these equations and see which solution has these two lines represented on the graph. And the way we found the x and y intercepts was to make x0 and then y0. When we make x0 in the first equation, we get -3y equals -21. So -3 times 7 would give you -21. And when we make y equal to 0, we have 7x equals -21. So the answer would be -3. Then for the second equation, when we make x 0, we have 10y equals -12. So we have an intercept of -12 over 10 or -6 over 5. And when we make y equal to 0, we have 4x equals -12. So x equals -3. So they both share the point -3, 0. And for the first equation, the y-intercept is at 0, 7. So we would have to choose B here. See, there's our y-intercept of 0, 7. And there's our common point of -3, 0. The second question says, Farmer Sam wants to build a rectangular pig pen with side lengths of, we're given two polynomials, 7x squared plus 2x minus 6 and x squared minus 8x plus 3 feet. And it asks about the fencing. How much fencing will he have to buy? Well, we know that if he's got a rectangular pig pen, the amount of fencing is going to be equal to the perimeter of the pig pen. So if one side is 7x squared plus 2x minus 6, we're going to have two of those. And if the other side is x squared minus 8x plus 3, we're going to have two of those because there's four sides total to the rectangle. So let's use distributive first. 14x squared plus 4x minus 12 plus 2x squared minus 16x plus 6. Then we're going to collect like terms. We have 14x squared plus 2x squared. That's 16x squared. 4x minus 16x, -12x, and then -12 plus 6 is minus 6. So the perimeter is going to be represented by this polynomial. In problem number 3, you're asked to solve for x. That means get x on one side of the equation and everything else on the other side of the equation. But we can do a little simplifying first. We can use distributive here. Say -6x minus 24 minus 1 equals -6x plus 7. And then, of course, we can combine like terms there. -6x minus 25 equals -6x plus 7. Now we want to continue to collect like terms, so let's move this 6x over to the other side by adding it to both sides, because that makes this become 0 here, and you have 0 here. Then we're going to see if we can put this 25 on the other side, plus 25. That means we have 0 equals, let's see, 32. Well, is that ever true? Do we ever have 0 equal to 32? No. So the answer here is going to be no solution. In this problem, you're asked to find the slope and the y-intercept of a linear function, but the linear function is written in standard form, so it's not easy just to lift the slope and the y-intercept out of the equation. The first thing we have to do is get it in slope-intercept form. There are other ways to do this. You could also find the x and y-intercept and use those to find the slope, but I think in this case this might be the easier route. 2x plus 3y equals 15. So we want to get that y by itself. We want to solve for y. So I'm going to subtract this 2x first from both sides. I end up with 3y equals, I'm going to put the 2x first, or the negative 2x, to keep it in that y equals mx plus b form, because it's just easier to work with. When you divide this, go ahead and divide each term individually. I think it makes it less confusing. Of course, this becomes 1, and you have y equals negative 2/3 x plus 15 over 3, which is actually just 5. So then you know that your slope, m, is negative 2/3, and your y-intercept, or b, your beginning point, is 5. Okay, this problem has several different parts. It says a container is leaking water at a constant rate of 5 gallons per hour. So that's our rate. And it's going to actually be negative, right? Because it's leaking. So we know that our slope is going to be negative 5. The container is empty after 13 hours. So what that tells us, because we know that our x-axis here is hours and our y-axis is gallons, so what that tells us is that the point 13, 0 is going to be on this line. So we have to remember how to write a linear equation when we're given the slope and a point. And here's how we do it. Y equals negative 5x plus b. We don't know what b is, but we can use this point to figure that out. If we put 0 in for y, negative 5 times 13 plus b. Now we can solve for b. Negative 5 times 13 is 65. So 0 equals negative 65 plus b, plus not 6, but plus b. And we add the 65 to both sides, and you get 65 equals b. So that's our y-intercept. That's the initial value. So that goes, let's see, we have to look at our scale, 60, 80. That means this is 70. So 65 would be right here, right? And our equation would look like this. Y equals negative 5x plus 65. Now, if we're going to graph it, we already know that the point 13, 0 is on the graph. So if this is 10 and this is 15 here, then 10, 11, 12, 13 would be right here. So we don't really need to do anything else. We have those 2 points. You can graph the line, and it will look something like this. And then the last question says, how much water did the container initially hold? Well, you already figured that out when you figured out the y-intercept. So the answer would be 65 gallons. Hey, in this problem, James starts working at Pizza Hut to build his savings account. He starts off with $45. That's a clue that that's going to be our initial value, or a B. Then every hour he works, he makes $8. So $8 per hour, that sounds like a rate to me. So y equals mx plus b. M is the rate, b is the starting point. Y equals 8x plus 45. And of course, we can also write it like this. F of x equals 8x plus 45. So let's see if our answer's on there. There it is, C. Okay, in this problem, Sylvia starts a babysitting job. She starts off with $25, and her babysitting rate is $8 per hour. So we can see what the initial value and the rate of change are, and we can write the equation like this. Y equals 8x plus 25, or f of x equals 8x plus 25. Now we're asked to find the total money that she will make, so we need to look at it week by week. The first week she babysat, she worked for 8 hours. The second week she babysat, she worked for 10 hours. The third week she babysat only for 1 hour. And the fourth week, she babysits for 12 hours. So we have to figure out what these amounts are. 8 times 8 is 64, plus 25 is $89. 8 times 10 is 80, plus 25 equals 105. This takes a minute to do, but it's just arithmetic, guys. 8 plus 25 equals 33. And then 8 times 12 plus 25 is 121. Then we have to add all those together. 89 plus 105 plus 33 plus 121 equals $348. Here we're told your soccer team has a goal to collect at least 85 blankets, which means they have to collect 85 blankets or more for a shelter. Team members brought 23 blankets on Monday and 17 blankets on Wednesday, so they already have now a total of 40 blankets. We're told to write and solve an inequality to find out how many blankets the team must donate on Friday to make or exceed their goal. So if we're dealing with an inequality, that automatically tells us we're going to have a less than or equal to, greater than or equal to, or a less than or equal to sign. So when we add the two amounts together, 40, plus whatever we're going to donate on Friday, we're going to call that X. We'll make that our variable. That's what we don't know. And that has to be greater than or equal to 85 in order for us to make or exceed our goal. In this problem, we're told to solve this equation for x. This is very familiar, linear equation, y equals mx plus b, but they're asking us to solve for x. In other words, we want to isolate x, get x by itself on one side of the equation. So a good first step might be to subtract b from both sides. So you end up with y minus b equals mx. And then we want to get rid of the m, we're going to divide by m. It's the same as if there was a number there. X equals y minus b over m. A college student completed some courses worth 3 credits and some courses worth 4 credits. The student earned a total of 16 credits after completing 5 courses. How many courses worth 4 credits did the student complete? Here's one of those situations where we're going to write 2 equations. One is about quantity and one is about value. We did this a lot when we went over this unit. So we know that if we let x equal the 3 credit courses and we let y equal the 4 credit courses, we can write 2 equations like this. It says that total he completed 5 courses. So if we add the courses together, we're going to get 5. Now, we can multiply 3 times the 3 credit course and 4 times the 4 credit course, and we're told that the total of credits was 16. So we have 2 equations here, and we can use different methods to solve these, or even just put them in Desmos and see where they intersect. If we're going to solve it, though, using elimination, we could multiply this top equation by -3. And when I do that, use distributive principle, I get -3x minus 3y equals -15. So I can add those 2 equations together. This eliminates, that's what we were going for. 4y minus 3y equals y. 16 minus 15 equals 1. And there's our answer. The table shows inputs and outputs for a relation. You guys have seen this problem before. And we're told to identify a possible value for x that would make the relation shown in the table not a function. It doesn't say anything about linear, just to make it not a function. Well, for it to be a function, every x has to have only one y. So in a table like this, for it to be a function, the x's cannot repeat. So if we want to make this not a function, we need to choose a value for that question mark that would cause the x's to repeat. So our 2 choices are either -2 or 5. If we made the x value in this table either one of those values, then it would make it not a function. So our two choices are -2, or we can choose 5. Well, looking down at our answer choices, -2 is not there, but 5 is. So that would be the value we could put in for x that would make this not a function. In this problem, we're told that function f gives the distance of a dog from a post in feet as a function of time in seconds since its owner left. Find the value of f of 100. Well, we're not given the equation here, we're just given this graph, so we're going to have to use the graph to find our answer. But we know that when we use function notation, it's f of x equals something, our equation, whatever that ends up being. So we know that 100 is our x here. We're trying to find what the y value is when x equals 100. This is our x-axis. So first we have to find 100 on the x-axis. Then we go up to the graph. So there's our point. Now we need to find the value. So we're going to go over to the y-axis. And it's a little more than 2. So our best choice here would be 2.2 feet. Benny needs to find x and y in the following system. The question is, which method should Benny use to solve this system and why? So the emphasis here is on the why, because you can choose either method. If we choose elimination, then we could either multiply the top equation by -2 to make the x's go away, or we could multiply the equation by -4 to make the y's go away and solve it that way. If we chose substitution, we could either solve this first equation for x or solve it for y, and then whichever one we solve for, we would plug it into the other equation so that we only have one variable, and then we could solve for the remaining variable. So either way, either method you could use, the emphasis here is on the why, understanding how you would use that method. Here we're given the first 5 terms of a sequence and told to write an expression that can be used to find the nth term. We're going to go with the explicit equation here because that's the one that's the most useful. And remember, it looks like this. A sub n equals a1 plus the common difference times n minus 1. Sometimes you might see that written as f of n instead of a sub n. And then we can write the equation like this. The first term is -12. Our common difference, we're actually decreasing, aren't we? From -12 to -18 to -24. So we're going to make that common difference negative. And it is -6. So you might see the answer like this. You might have to simplify a little bit. If you don't see your answer choice, I'm going to use distributive here, -6n plus 6, and then we can combine the -12 and the -6, so we end up with -6n minus 6. So either one of those could be your answer choice. Derek and his friends want to go play paintball. The entrance fee is $15, and each game of paintball costs $7. So they give us the equation. 15 is our initial value and 7 is our rate of change. And it asks us which one of the following statements is false. Well, we know that A, the total cost will increase by $7 for every game, is true because that's our rate of change, $7. So it can't be that one. C says it costs $15 per player before any games are purchased. In other words, 15 is our initial value. That's true. So we have to eliminate that one. We're looking for false statements, remember? B says the total cost will increase by $15 for every 7 games of paintball played. That means our rate of change would be 15 over 7. So that one is false. But let's look at D also. It says if Derek has $50, he can only play 4 games. Let's work that out. If he has $50, let's see how many games he can play. All right, if we subtract the 15 from both sides, we're going to get 35 equals 7x. We divide by 7. We get x equals 5. So if he has $50, he can play 5 games. So this one is also false. In this case, they're both false. On the test, I promise you that only one of them will be false. But you have to understand what the question is asking you and make sure that you are looking for the statement that is not true, that doesn't fit the scenario given, okay? Lance needs to charge his iPad. The battery is at 30% of its full capacity when he connects it to the charger. So there's a clue about our initial value in this problem. X represents the minutes that pass by, and Y represents the percentage of his charge. So if we added a little column here, we could say that at 0 minutes, or when he connects it to the charger, he's at 30% capacity. So really, we're given all the information we need to write a linear equation. We know that an additional 7% is added each minute that passes, so they give us the rate of change. We can figure that out from the table as well, doing change in Y over change in X, but they give it to us in the problem. And then we know that our initial value is 30. They give us that as well. So it asks, how long would it take for Lance's iPad to be fully charged? So what we're looking for is when Y is 100%, what would X be? Well, let's just put the 100 in for Y and see. 100 equals 7X plus 30. And we're going to solve that by subtracting 30 from both sides. 70 equals 7X. If we divide both sides by 7, we get X equals 10. So the meaning of our answer is that after 10 minutes, his laptop or his iPad would be completely charged. A student went on a run continuously for 50 minutes, and the graph shows the remaining percentage of the workout as a linear function of X. So they give us the graph, and it says, how could you best describe the range? You have to remember the definition of range is all possible Y values. So if we look at our graph, here's the Y-axis. So our Y values start at 0 and end at 100. So we could write it like this. Y has to be greater than or equal to 0 and less than or equal to 100. This problem is just about reading a graph. It says the graph represents the relationship between the number of tablespoons of sugar in the bowl and the total weight of the bowl. How much does the bowl weigh with 5 grams of sugar in it? We'll look for 5 grams of sugar. There it is. And if we go up to the graph, we find that that is a weight of 400 grams. All right, this problem takes some test-taking skills as well as mathematical skills. It says, which graph below accurately shows the following system of inequalities? Well, a good first step, if we call this equation 1 and this equation 2, is to figure out which line represents which equation. Well, this line, line 2, has a negative slope. So it looks like this line has to be our second equation. This is the one with the negative slope. And then our first line, line 1, is going to be represented by this other graph. Okay, and that's really helpful because remember, the difference between the dotted line and the solid line in a graph of an inequality is that if we have less than or equal to or greater than or equal to, the line is solid, and if we have just less than or greater than, the line is dotted. All right, so in equation 1, we should have a solid line. All right, so that lets us know that this cannot be the answer, and this cannot be the answer because in both of those we have a dotted line for equation 1. In equation 2, we just have greater than, so we need a dotted line. So out of those two choices that are left, A or D, which one of those has a dotted line for equation 2? Well, the answer is A. So we figure out the answer by using the fact that we know the difference between a dotted line and a solid line in an inequality, and then using the process of elimination. This last problem, the graph represents the relationship between the number of tablespoons of sugar in the bowl and the total weight of the bowl. You've seen this graph before, but in this case, our question is, what is the rate of change of the weight of the bowl with regards to the tablespoons of sugar? Whenever we see rate of change, you know we're looking for slope. And we're actually given 2 points here. It says if the bowl weighs 350 grams without any tablespoons of sugar, that means 1 point is 0, 350. and 725 grams when it holds 32 tablespoons of sugar. So our second point is 32 and 725. We can easily figure out the slope, which is the rate of change, or the change in y over the change in x. Well, we've got 2 points here. Our change in y from 350 to 725. 725 minus 350 is 375. And then our change in x from 0 to 32 is, of course, 32. So we can figure out the rate of change by saying 375 divided by 32, which gives us 11.72. And let's look for that answer down here, D.